Oh, hello. Today I've hiked to Hilton Falls, which is about an hour and a half outside of the city. I was here a couple of weeks ago and got a really nice shot, but there were a couple problems with it, and I've decided that what I really need is a reshoot. And so I've come sort of on a Monday after work with the intention of reshooting this to sort of get the exact, composition and lighting and everything that I want. So hopefully it's pretty good. It's still the middle of July, and so the water levels of all of these waterfalls that I'm going to is really low. But I don't know. I think this waterfall might look better with a little bit less water. It's sort of a little bit calmer and exposes a lot of the rock face. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, but it's really quite an impressive waterfall overall. But the rock face behind it is what really makes it quite special. So, anyways, I'm gonna go start getting my composition set up and taking a look at what I might want. So I've just come up to the waterfall, and I don't know if you can see all of this on this camera, but this is just spectacular. Yeah, the water level has gone down quite a bit, but I think that's the most amazing thing. It's exposed all these rocks, but also it's very visible what's going on behind the waterfall. I'm gonna set up a couple of compositions here. I want to see what I can do to incorporate some of the dead growth, some of the trees that have been cut down and I think sent down the river. Um, if I don't incorporate them as a main element, they're just going to end up looking, a bit noisy, a bit messy. But if I pull them into the scene, they might end up being a star player. Yeah, there are a couple of these that are really been hollowed out by some natural process. I think that's the first composition I'm going to try. Let me go back and get my tripod. Typically, at some point in any photo shoot, I will accept that the right thing to do is to get my feet wet. So I could tell almost right away that this wasn't going to work. Although I tried to move my tripod and camera around a little bit, what I found was that the log that I really like, not only does it move slightly, meaning that I can't really get a long exposure of it, but also it points in the opposite direction. I want this thing to be pointing the viewer's eye all the way up to the waterfall. I want this to go straight there. And so I'm not above moving this. I think that's not completely ridiculous, because I think this is quite nice. The colors in here are quite dark. We've got this beautiful contrasting element. It's completely separated from the waterfall. You can see in the background all of the rock face, which I really love. And there's quite a lot of green in it, sort of, to go with this brown. And you've got this matching waterfall to to this log here. So it's really not that bad. I think what I might do is simply move this thing around and see if I can recompose it. Okay, so I think I'm finally happy with what I have here. Um, I've gone for a vertical composition, and I thought this log that I've moved definitely moved around. with just the waterfall in the background and the rocks behind. I can't see the top of the waterfall whatsoever, and the water that's in the middle really doesn't have any interest in it whatsoever. I'm going for something that's very, very simple. That's the plan. So as you can see, this is a really, really simple composition. I've done a couple of test shots. I can run through that with you. But, really I've just got this isolated log here. The wet part is not really a big deal. Not really worried about that as it blends in with the water quite nicely. And I've made sure not to, you know, cut off this side at all, or make it interact with this rock that's over here, because I really don't want anything interrupting my composition. So this is just focused on the foreground. The background's quite blurry, but I'll focus stack that to get both in focus. But I really like the way this water is coming down, creating this little pool. The sort of log kind of creates a C shape and kind of cups it a little bit. And then we've got these layer after layer after layer of different rock that's, has been eroded away from this waterfall into the water. And so it's really coming together quite nicely. As I'm planning out my shot, I'm thinking about a couple of different things. You may be able to see this on the screen, but I'm really quite close to this log. It's really not very large. And so I'm definitely going to need to focus stack. In fact, I'm probably going to need to focus stack several different parts of the foreground of this log to be able to get a very, very in-focus image. Probably I'm also going to focus on this rock that's over to the right a little bit here, and then I'll focus directly behind the waterfall to get the rocks that are behind the waterfall in focus. Don't really care much about the water. That's all going to be blurred by the shutter speed anyways. So I think probably this dark area that's right here will have a lot of interesting detail in it. So I'm going to use my back button autofocus and direct manual focus to have autofocus take me pretty close to where I need to be, and then I'll be able to rotate the focus ring to be able to get the rest of it. Let me show you that. As I'm rocking my focus back and forth, I can see where exactly I'm going to want to have be in focus. This looks pretty good for this entire front section here. So I'll go ahead, create a divider frame, and with my 2-second timer on, take this shot. Now, the next point of focus that I'm going to want is probably in this area here, with some interesting detail, a little bit of water sort of made its way up on there. Now, it's a little bit damp, and so I'll probably want to focus on that to pull some of this detail out. I'll try that again. So the next point that I think I'm going to want is this rock that you should be able to see just outside of the frame, just about here. And while it's not particularly interesting and I don't care to focus on it, focusing on that will get the back of this log in focus, and also be able to get the rest of this waterfall, at least the forefront, in focus. So now finally the last piece of focus that I want is going to be behind this waterfall. Probably what I'll do is pick a piece that's going to be pretty contrasty and visible behind the water so that I can easily focus on it. There is a perfect example. When I hit the autofocus, it actually brought me all the way to infinity, and I needed to roll it quite far back to get everything that I wanted in focus. I think I'm going to want to check this image. Oh yeah, that's brilliant. So I've come over to the other side of the waterfall to shoot a second composition. This was the composition that I got a few weeks ago, and it's definitely landscape orientation, beautiful waterfall, lots of different interesting lichen and leaves and all sorts of things coming down, growing on the side of the rock, with the waterfall coming down, just off to the right, and laying down this beautiful sort of ribbon of water all along the rim of the waterfall. It's beautiful. Let me show it to you. As you can see, I've got this absolutely beautiful, very dark but green you know, water dripping down the side of the waterfall. And a lot of these drops are illuminated as they drip down all of these different leaves. And then heading over into the waterfall, almost pointing towards it, are all of these individual streams of water that all lead the eye right to these now two waterfalls coming down, making two slightly smaller individual pools than they were last week. I'm so happy with this. I'm so happy with the time of day. I think the light's going to work out just great, and I better get on with it because my light is fading. So I'm going to put this composition together, hopefully show you a little bit of it as I'm working, but I'm mostly just going to prioritize getting this shot out of the way. First of all, I'm about 3 or 4 feet from a waterfall drip that's right near my camera, which means I'm likely going to be getting spots all over the lens. And to avoid that, I'm going to be cleaning the lens between shots. So I've decided that my camera is going to be moving. That's just going to be one of the realities of this shot. I'm going to need to go wider than I even want to be able to get just slightly more so that later when I'm aligning these layers in Photoshop, I've got a little bit of extra room to work with. Let me walk you through what I have so far. The shot is fairly simple in that I've got a waterfall off to the right, different sort of foliage in this very black area off to the left, rocks leading the viewer into the scene, and the water kind of going away, which gives it a little bit more dynamic of a view. Hopefully this all comes out when I'm able to pull the colors out, but this black is really quite dark. But when you look at it visually, it's really quite stunning because it has so much green in it, and it's bright. It's reflecting a lot of the light because of how wet it is. I'm going to start focusing on a few of these, see if I can get a good test shot, take a look at it. Typically after I take my first shot, I'll pull the camera off the tripod and really take a look at the composition to get a really good idea of just what I'm working with. I'm going to do that now. My test shot looked pretty good. I think I might bring the composition just over to the right, just a slight bit. See what that does to it. The only real problems I have is branches that are coming into the frame and different things on the ground that I don't really like the look of, but I can really easily edit those out to simplify the composition and make this a better shot overall. Go ahead and start taking some of these shots. And the last shot I'm going to want will be very underexposed, right in this waterfall. Be able to pull out any detail I'm going to want later on. And that's the last shot. Time to go, time to head home, spend some time with Anne, and hopefully edit a couple of these images, and get my kit ready for the next day. Bye for now.